Right now, look at my world, in the jungle, for the moon right now. Street is nice and cold. I see my chest that's cold. Heart my chest that's froze. Street is icy and froze. Ice in my chest that's cold. Heart in my chest that's cold. Feeling icy and cold. Street is icy, froze. Ice in my chest that's cold. Heart in my chest that's cold. Feeling icy and froze. Feel it coming. I gotta go get it. I gotta go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I'm going. Go get it. I'm going. Go get it. Get it. Go get it. Street is icy cold. I've been the fast lane trying to get it right now. Look at my world, in the jungle, for the moon right now. Street is icy and cold. Ice in my chest that's cold. Heart in my chest that's froze. Street is icy cold. Street is icy cold. I've been the fast lane trying to get it right now. Look at my world, in the jungle, for the moon right now. Street is icy cold. Heart in my chest that's froze. Ice in my chest that's cold. That's cold. Nah, nah, nah. Street is icy and froze. Ice in my chest that's cold. Heart in my chest that's cold. Feeling icy and cold. Street is icy, froze. Ice in my chest that's cold. Heart in my chest that's cold. Feeling icy and froze. Feel it coming. I gotta go get it. I gotta go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I'm going. Go get it. I'm going. Go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I'm going. Go get it. I'm going. Go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I'm going. Go get it. I'm going. Go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I got it. I got it. I got it. Go get it. Get it. Go get it. Feel it coming. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. You are I got it.
That is called Let the Wolf with the Cold, playing right here on the Black on Fire Radio Media for the 21st century. Karibuni sana and good morning. And to you, family, hope you are doing great. This wonderful day, evening, the 9th of February, the year 2022. I do hope that this 5 minutes to 12 p.m. right here in Nairobi. I do not know about you, but kindly do remember to engage with us. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on Instagram as you get to tell us. So you're streaming with us from, and how is this particular week finding you? And what is the time from wherever you are listening with us or other streaming with us? I want to appreciate you so much for being part of the Black Hot Fire Network Media for the 21st century. We appreciate you. We don't take your time for granted. Every moment to take your time and log and check out to the matters, rather engage with us, help us resolve the matters and get conclusion onto the matters that are affecting the African continent. We appreciate you. Kindly do log in if you want to create your own profile. In case you're joining us for the first time, do that by creating your profile onto the www.blackoutfirenetwork.com. Once you log on to the website, it is easy, just to join the family and get to share your thoughts and get to share your ideas or the information you come across regarding the African people, or the information that people need to know, especially at this particular period of time where people are really waking up. I want to appreciate you so much and say my Tuesdays are chilled, but today I'm just a little bit easy. So do not ask why Joby is not all over the place. Today I just want to be easy. And and I want to appreciate you so much for being with us. I'm looking forward to seeing Mosquito and to the rest of the family who are looking forward to joining us on today's broadcast. And of course, feel free to engage with us regarding the issues that we'll be discussing. I'll be going back to some music, and once I come back, I'll be giving you some wise words of the day. Some wise quotes, because they say, our ancestors were the people, especially when you speak of our ancestors, that's even in the life of like our grandparents. Despite the indoctrination, these people, when it comes to the wise words, if you are a grandchild, or maybe you want to get some advice from someone who's a bit elderly, our grandparents, I think, are the best to give this particular kind of words. I can't even say our parents. Yes, our parents they might fall in the category of where I was saying that, where they say whatever an elder person can see, even if you stand on top of a tree, you wouldn't see it. I think for them, they suit that particular one, because they are elder than us, but I think the elderly, now the grandparents, they have the best, because they have seen life, they know it all, and they have some history, as much as it's not the real history when it comes to the African history. That is what I can say. So I'll be giving you some quotes, some wise words of the day, just to keep you going, because I say nothing comes easy. Rather, no one was born, even if you are born on a silver, a bed full of roses, still there are challenges. I've seen, actually, the most unhappy people are the people who are living the top-notch type of life. I don't know why, but some of these people are never even happy. You might have money, yes, but you're not happy, and you might lack money but be the happiest person in this particular one. But at the end of the day, I hope that you are doing great, and this amazing day is finding you at peace and in good health. And I want to appreciate you so much for being with us on today's broadcast. I'll be going back to some music, and do not have the button. This is by the one and only Starkey Darkos, and this is goes by the name I Don't Care. And I hope that you do not care about the negativities that are coming your way. Erase each and every one of them as you enjoy these amazing vibrations from the Blackout Fine Network until you.
Love is for some cause nigga don't trust nobody. She said she love you, but she love everybody else. This summer she love you, she love another man, oh yeah. Makes a man go do. She said, baby, I can't explain. I love you, not him. We just friends, we just talk and nothing less, nothing more. We are no explanation. From you, we are no explanation. You should know that I don't care no more. You should know that I don't care no Love is for some cause me, I don't trust nobody. She said she love me, but she love everybody. There's someone she love me, she love another man, oh yeah. Written on the I won't let my emotion win. 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 You should know that I don't care. You should know that I don't care.
Just some positive vibes to keep you going through with the day, with this particular morning, in case maybe you're getting ready for work, or whatever you are preparing yourself to do this particular amazing day. I want to appreciate you for joining us and today's broadcast kindly. sorry about that. And I want to appreciate you so much for being with us and to today's broadcast. Kindly do interact with us. We are on Facebook, on Twitter, and also on Instagram as you tell us how this particular day is taking you. It is 2 minutes past 12 p.m. right here in the 254. I don't know about you, but do let us know what is the time over there. We do want to appreciate you every minute that you are taking your time and joining us in each broadcast. Do remember we have different shows, rather different particular subjects. We have the Pan African Bliss, we have the African Diary, we have the 254 to Jadili show, we have the Rhythm Scoop show, we have the Express show, we also have the 54 correspondent and the Africa Today show. In all this, we get to give you your time once again and joining us in each and every particular broadcast. Moving on to, before I get to the matters of the day, I want to give you one amazing quote of the day. Just some wise words. As I was speaking of some wise words, and these came, it's like they originated from our ancestors. I don't know where they really originated from, but they should come from our ancestors. That is what I can really say. And one of it says, you cannot have a positive life and a negative mind. They can never work. Like they never go hand in hand. If you want a positive life, you must also have a positive mind. You can't have a positive life and a negative mind, or you want a positive life and your mind is all the way like you're not even sure of what you want. You must align. It is called aligning with the universe. You must align with the universe and be sure of what you want. So if it is positive, make clarity it is positive. If it is negative, make clarity it is negative. You have to be very, very specific even for the universe to deliver unto you. That is one of the quotes. So if you want a positive life, ensure that your mind is also aligning the same with your mind. Your life is a mind aligning the same with your mind for you to attract what you want. And the other one says everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. And everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Totally the truth. That is what I can really say. Because when you look at when you speak of the African history, everything we've had is not the truth. Like literally, everything we've had is not the truth. Everything we see is not the fact. Like it's the vice versa of everything. A lot of things have been hidden away from us, and I think this is just the simplest way of explaining this. Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact, because we've had so many opinions. When you look at the African image, it has been given so many, opinions. Africa is this, and none of this is a fact. And everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. That is like in the likes of the media. When you look at what the media present unto us, and when you go to do further research or deep research onto this particular matter, you find it is totally the opposite of whatever the truth you're supposed to be receiving. So I do hope with these two amazing quotes, or the wise words, are going to keep you going this particular amazing day. Despite whatever you're going through, just shake it off and tell yourself, it is just another day. So long as you have life. I have heard of a certain musician saying, so long as you have life, you have the opportunity to make everything right. So long as you have life, you have the opportunity to change anything that you want in this amazing, amazing, amazing life. But let me go straight to the matters of the day. And I also have a video to share. There's a certain video Keith shared with me. And I'll be looking forward to see if I can be able to share it, because I think it is either yesterday's show or I'm not really sure. I'll be checking onto it. So moving on to the matters of the day, I wanted to start with the other day we did get to see that Uganda I think it has been almost 2 years where the curfew has been, it has been on, and we had also the borders closed. We did get to see just the other day the Rwanda border and the Uganda border were open. So right now I think people have the chances and the opportunity. So far, I've not seen any reports which have come speaking about this particular matter when the borders were open, and how everything is going now, because I did get to see that people were shocked, rather the leaders, I can say, the people who are capable, or rather in charge of this particular systems, them saying we can close this, we can do this, without seeing the effects. And what they were shocked when they saw that not so many people reacted to the matter. When the borders were open, they expected people to trade, people to move, and so many, like for the road to be busy, but it was less of what they really expected. And I think I did get to clarify on this. I think people are really tired, and that they had to come because 3 years or 2 years, it's not less time as much as it is also less. Again, you can't just stay there waiting for the leaders to make decisions for you, to tell you, you can't run your business like this. Definitely you have to calculate your mind very quickly and come up with new ideas. And I think for Rwanda and Uganda, that is what they did. But now, with the matter of the curfew being uplifted, it is on the motorbike side, and that these people are not allowed to move anyhow. So right now they have been given freedom to movement however they want. And this is quite amazing, especially when it comes to matters of business. We did get to see just the other day, they were not even able to like carry, they could not even do, they could not operate a business in a day. Why? Because one, the borders being closed, it led to a big effect of people accessing like things like petroleum, diesel, and all that. The prices had gone so high, and I think with all this, it has reduce some stress. As much as this puppet is on the seat, and he has been doing this all, and you know what he is doing, it is quite an advantage also to the Uganda people. And I do hope with this particular movement they're going to go back to their normal schedules like they were before. But as I said, you can't, the country can't just come up with a decision one day. They wake up, because this is what they are used to. They are used to waking up just a certain day, or just here there's breaking news, the leader has said this, or Uhuru has said this, Museveni has said this, without even people's awareness or people knowing anything. Things just happen, and you just have to make decisions out of nowhere. And with this pandemic that has been here for 2 years, I think people did, I said this is where the moment you just had to calculate your mind very quickly. So if you didn't come up with new business ideas and all that, then I bet you have been stuck for the longest time. But I'm so happy for the Uganda people, and I do hope with the price charges of the diesel and petroleum is going to go a little bit lower, because we did get to see, the borders led to a lot of effect, especially in terms of transport sector. And that is what is happening in Uganda. Moving on to other different matters is concerning the US and the Somali. And right now they have given visa restriction, and they're saying that the undemocratic Somalis are supposed to face the US visa restrictions. And they're saying that the US has announced visa restriction against current or former Somali officials accused of undermining democratic process. And it comes as the US pushes for credible elections in Somali, which has been long delayed. And the visa restrictions applied to people who have failed to follow through their obligations to implement timely and transparent elections. That is the secretary, the U.S. State of Secretary. Anthony Blinken. This guy, when he came, actually remember he was here just the other time. And after him leaving, a lot of things did get to happen within a short period of time. Just the other day we saw, when he came, he made a visit to Kenya. He was supposed to go to Somali, he was supposed to go to Ethiopia, if I'm not wrong, in Sudan. He was supposed to go to 4 countries, especially when it comes to, in terms of peacekeeping and peacemaking, I can just say so. So right now I do not really understand why is it that we have, despite Africa being divided with the borders, where you cannot, we don't even have access to travel, or that even us traveling across the African countries, it is already expensive for Africans. Then right now, even them trying to also interfere with the matters of visas, because it just doesn't make sense, because I do not understand why they have to come forth and make decisions on how even the visas in Africa will work, or they can make restrictions on anything. Yes, we know we don't own anything. Yes, we know Africa is being controlled by these people, but till when are we going to continue with all this? Yes, right now I can see they're still pushing with they need Somali to go on election. I don't know when, but I bet it could be this particular. But let me just say, they're saying it also targets officials who have targeted journalists, oppositions party members with harassments, intimidation, arrest, and violence. And Somalia has postponed elections since the mandate of President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed, who is also known as Farmajo, and which expired February last year. In direct direct parliamentary elections started in November and was supposed to conclude by 24th December, but have been marred by disputes. Well, it is not clear when they're supposed to go for elections, but I think for the with all the coups that have been happening right now, I see the necessity why they really need to keep on doing this. I remember I was discussing with Kate all this, and I was just like, I wish all this could happen across the African continent, because right now it is the time where people are really waking up and getting the information that we've been getting orders for so long, but not all the African nations are ready, because we have the puppets who are those who have power. If you speak of power, we have people like Museveni. Right now, just yesterday, we were speaking about the other day, actually it was on Monday, when we were speaking about him and how he's looking forward to, also after him retiring, he might, because right now he has already like elected the son to be the head of the military, or the head of the military. That is what I can say. And who knows, he might end up becoming the president of Uganda once again, the country or the continent to be led by the same puppets over and over again. And I was just telling Kate, if all the coups could happen in Africa, if they could happen, let them happen without affecting people, because the effect that comes with all this is that you find that innocent people are dying in the middle of all this. So I do hope that all this could happen, but in a peaceful way. And with the Somali and the US visa restriction, this is totally crazy. But African nations need to wake up and realize what is really happening, and just to make a decision out of all these. It's either we going to do it, the citizens, or it's either the leaders are either going to be, it's either they are eliminated, and we have to choose the right leaders now, people who are willing to lead the country or the continent with oneness. Because yesterday we were speaking about how we can make Swahili one continental language, but it is impossible. Just today, I don't know why every day when I'm coming to work, I'm just observing different things on a daily basis. Today when I was coming to work, I had someone addressing the other one, with the tribe where they come from, like, hey, you Mkamba, hey, Kikuyu, come here. Kikuyus don't walk like that, Kambas don't walk like that, you should not do that. Like, why don't you just address someone with their name? Because when he mentioned Kamba, I even looked, I'm like, what is really going on? What is that? It is really crazy with the matters of tribalism that we're trying to fight every day. It is going to take time, because first, or it's like an injection, leave alone the big ugali shot. It's like an injection we have been injected, where it is going to be so hard again to like remove that, because it's already mixed with the blood. You already know, like, supposed to address people by tribalism, or supposed to do this, which is totally crazy. But I can see John Mosquito in the building. You're saying, good rising, Joby, good rising to you too. You're saying everybody is asleep, and they were up all night on Brother Kid's show. Yeah, I bet so, because I think it is 7 hours ago. So you guys must have done that quite a long time. But I want to appreciate you, John Mosquito, for being with us. I'm gonna take a short musical break. Then when I come back, I'll be discussing more of what is happening right here on the Black Hot Fire Radio, and of course on other different continents, including even here the 254. So keep it the Black Hot Fire Network. We'll be right back after this short musical break.
Ó fẹ́ kó bá mi, ó fẹ́ kó bá mi, ó fẹ́ fi wà burúkú kó bá mi, ó wá lọ́mọ mi, ó ń lọ́mọ mi, kí ló ṣẹlẹ̀ gbọ̀ngàn, baby kan ná mi, ó fẹ́ utilize me, ó fẹ́ minimize me, ó fẹ́ patronize me, ó fẹ́ traumatize me, ó fẹ́ humiliate me, ó fẹ́ humiliate me, ó fẹ́ dẹ́kun sọ́dọ̀ kan, ó fẹ́ kọ́ mi lábí, ó fẹ́ lá mi lábí, ó fẹ́ bá mi lábí, ó fẹ́ mi lábí, ó fẹ́ kọ́ mi lábí, ó fẹ́ lá mi lábí, ó fẹ́ lá mi lábí, I need my show. I need my show. I need my show. Baby girl, you the baddest. Everybody know you the baddest. But you ain't got no manners. You should walk on your manners. Baby girl, you the baddest. You know you the baddest. You ain't got no manners. You should walk on your manners. That's how you should go. Baby girl, make you go. That's how you should go. with you. Think I try for you. And you play me like a fool, but I'm wise now. When you've sexy figure on your timeline, you with the girls too. That's next time. I've been looking at you, get you up. I've been looking now, get me moving. I've been looking now, get me honest. I've been looking hard, get me try up. To be nice up. You look over there, baby, on me. Baby, I'm fed up. Fed up, baby, on me. Oh, I got everything in my time. Baby, on me. Baby, I'm locked up. Baby, I'm locked up. Baby girl, you the baddest. Everybody know you the baddest. But you ain't got no manners. You should walk on your manners. Baby girl, you the baddest. You know you the baddest. You ain't got no manners. You should walk on your manners. That's how you should go. That's how you should go.
Yes, and that is Taki Dakos with Go right here on the Block of Fire Radio Media for the 21st century. Once again, karibuni sana to the Pan-African Bliss. I hope you are doing great. Joe Mosquito, how is this day finding you? And what is the time from wherever you are listening to us from? It is 18 minutes past 12 p.m. right here into 5-4. But I appreciate you for being with us and today's broadcast. And moving on to other different matters, what I really wanted to talk about before I share a certain video of us understanding why Africa is still super poor. We're speaking about how we see, it is the other day where I was speaking of which country particularly was I speaking of? I can't really recall, but I did get to ask some questions, and trying to understand, the matters of ECOWAS and all this that has really been happening. When you look at the African countries, we have been colonized by different colonial, different colonies. We have the likes of British, speaking of the Spain or different colonies. I can just say so. So I was just looking at the matters of Ghana, and there is a certain explosion that happened in Ghana, and right now they have actually, like, how do I say, they have sued Spanish, rather Spain, to pay this particular explosion. Rather, they are being accountable of this particular incident that happened because it killed 13 people along the way. And I was just checking, Ghana was colonized by British. That is one of the matters that I was checking. Now, right now, with whatever is happening in this particular country, I do not really understand, but it just makes me somehow reason when you look at, like, why Africa we still stuck in the same place. It is because we, like, right now, the colonial people, the British, this particular Mzungus, they are trying to come up together. We're speaking like in the likes of European, the Europe or other, let's say British, coming up together and working, to still put Africa in poverty. There is how they are coordinating, there is how they are operating. I don't understand how, but this is why Africa is still in poverty. Everything that happens in Africa, you find it is always caused by them. Somehow it is always caused by them. But let me just share this video that I really wanted to share, and we get to understand of what is really being spoken in this particular video. And I think the one that Kit sent me, it is the show that you guys did yesterday at night. But I hope I'll be checking out on my on my own. I'll be checking out on my own. But let me just share this one, get to understand what I'm really talking about when it comes to the Africans still remaining in the same place and why we're not moving forward. Let me just share this.
The African continent is famous for its poverty, but many people don't know the complete reason why Africa is so poor. While we all have a vague idea, such as corruption, colonization, or foreign interference.
John Mosquito, I can see you saying that you just got back from work, about to chill out and unwind. That's what's up. But asante sana for being with us to today's broadcast. Let me just share this video and you tell me what are your thoughts on it. If you relate with the the content being given, because I did relate with it. Why we're still remaining in poverty up to date. And when you look at how we have the dollar, which has made so many African people not to see the rich in the resources we have. The dollar, the paper, which came with the Mzungu, has blinded a lot of us. That's why when you look at like the young African youths, they'd rather walk away from Africa, go look for this particular money, or rather go work as a maid for the Arabs. You go wash snakes or wash particular kind of animals that I hear that is what they do over there. You lied to, then you end up coming back in a coffin, which is super crazy, because of the poverty. The leaders, our leaders
All
have led
these
us
reasons
into.
ignore why any of these things can happen in the first place. So in this video, I see that. In this video, we will look from the point when African countries were rich and powerful, how over the centuries Africa lost its wealth, and why Africa hasn't been able to crawl out of its poverty while so many other countries and foreign colonies have. And to do this, we need to start in the 14th century, with Eastern Africa connected to the Indian Ocean trade, while West Africa was home to the richest person to have ever lived, a man named Mansa Musa. While many historians throughout history have concluded that Africa barely has any history aside from mummies and pyramids, it is important to remember that for most of history, much of Africa was as well connected to the rest of the world as Europe or Asia. They developed metallurgy that was on par with Europe and Asia, developed complex mathematical theories, and had intricate systems of government such as city-states, kingdoms, and empires. So, what changed? Well, in the 14th and 15th century, Africa's prosperity began to fall behind that of the rest of the world. This was because of two external forces, the Ottoman Empire and the Western European empires. We will start with the Ottoman Empire, because the Ottomans required slaves, and the way they got their slaves was through war. They would go into villages, towns, and cities to capture the men, women, and children to be sold as slaves back home. And the easiest and cheapest place to get new slaves was Eastern Africa. And so slave traders were able to earn a lot of money by buying or capturing East Africans to sell them to the Ottomans. This trade continued all the way into the 19th century. Something similar was happening with Western European empires. At first, European traders came to Africa to trade salt in exchange for gold and ivory. Later, Europeans sailed around Africa to go to Asia. As a result, West Africa became an important location for European traders to stock up on supplies on the way to and from Asia. Soon after, Europeans tried going to East Asia directly by crossing the Atlantic, but instead, they stumbled upon the Americas. In these Americas, the Europeans set up colonies, and these colonies were supposed to have the same system of government as that of Europe, with nobility, barons, clergy, knights, and peasants. But those Europeans had a problem. The Native Americans, who were supposed to become the new peasants, were dying from diseases like smallpox, measles, bubonic plague, and many more. And a dead peasant is an unproductive peasant. So where were they going to find new peasants for American colonies? Well, they found them on the West African slave markets. At the time, West Africa had slavery, but it wasn't the type of slavery we often think of. A slave had similar rights as non-slaves. Their children weren't automatically slaves themselves, and they were often part of the family structure rather than a separate worker. And so European traders began buying slaves from West Africa. West Africans were happy to sell European slaves because their own gold mines were drying up in the 15th century, and they were looking for a new way to earn money. But how do you get new slaves? Well, you go to war for them. Various African countries went to war with their neighbors, captured their citizens, and then sold those citizens to the Europeans. Prominent slaver countries were the Ghana Empire, the Mali Empire, the Bono State, and the Songhai Empire. From the perspective of African rulers, this seemed like a good deal. They were weakening their rivals while earning lots of money in the process. And so over time, slavery changed from a relatively small market where slaves had rights into a large system of warfare where slaves became property to be sold to the highest bidder. This evolved into a system where slave traders would go to Africa to buy slaves and put as many as they could fit onto their ships. They would then sail to the Americas, where those slaves were sold to work to death in the fields. Those slave traders then bought raw materials those slaves produced, such as sugarcane, cotton, or cocoa, sail to Europe, and sell those raw materials for a profit. In Europe, those materials would be turned into manufactured goods like rum, clothing, or weapons. The traders then bought those manufactured goods and sailed back to Africa to sell those manufactured goods and use the profits to buy new slaves. This was a good deal for everybody except the slaves. The Americans received slaves to use in the plantations, the Europeans received raw materials, and the West Africans received manufactured goods. And the plight of the slaves was not an issue to any of them. While at times Europeans tried taking slaves by force, this always failed because the African kingdoms were far too strong at the time, and so they maintained friendly relations with whichever country was willing to sell slaves. Over the centuries, empires collapsed into civil wars, and the slave traders were more than willing to buy their former slave partners as slaves to be shipped off to the Americas. And so as empires rose and fell, there were always merchants willing to buy slaves. This happened in the Kingdom of Congo, which fell apart into various factions, and so other parts of the former Kingdom of Congo and sold them to Portuguese traders. As the Europeans founded more and more colonies in the Americas, the more slaves could be sold, and the richer the trader became. And this trade had a long-term effect on the economies of Africa, both in West Africa as well as East Africa with the Ottomans. Because before industrialization, the economy of a country was determined by the amount of people living in the country. The more people you had, the larger your economy was. And if you had a large economy, things other than food. In Europe, for example, craftspeople produced all sorts of things from alcoholic drinks, steel, muskets, cigars, and of course that sweet, delicious chocolate. But
So this came from Africa. That is really crazy, but let me move on with the video.
But it took centuries for those industries to fully mature. But in Africa, these industries never matured like they did in the rest of the world. Because in Africa, craftspeople were enslaved, and this had a tremendous impact on the African economies, while European, Asian, and American industries kept growing and kept improving. Africa's industries stagnated. And soon they could no longer compete with European and Asian imports, and the African industries became small and insignificant because you could buy better and cheaper products from Asian and European markets. But you might be asking yourselves, why did the Africans go along with this? Well, because they had to. When you have several warlike empires surrounding you, you yourself have to invest in a strong military to protect yourself. But if you put more money in the military, it means there is less money for you to spend on your own economy. So if an African leader realized what was going on, they couldn't invest in industries because they had to protect themselves. And so all the way into the 19th century, Africa's economies were slowly declining because the slave trade slowly destroyed the African economies, while making a huge profit for those who captured and sold slaves. But why did Western Europeans and the Ottomans weaken Africa for hundreds of years? Well, because it was convenient for the people in charge at that time. It wasn't some grand plan, but instead, each government, trader, and company saw an opportunity in Africa to earn profit. This profit came at the expense of African long-term wealth, with most of the people involved probably not even realizing this. And when a particular region becomes weaker, there are always the strong who will exploit the weak. And in the 19th century, three major events happened that would solidify African poverty. The first was the end of slavery. All of a sudden, African slave traders were losing customers because slavery was becoming illegal across the world. And this was a big problem for African countries because their economies relied on exporting slaves and importing foreign goods. But now they lost their main source of income. And because Africa had not built up any other industries because of the slave trade, it did not have another source of income with which it could trade with the outside world. So Africans could no longer buy many of the goods and tools they relied on. And as a result, the African economies slowly collapsed in the 19th century. The second major event in the 19th century was industrialization. Europeans and Americans started to outproduce the rest of the world. Africa became insignificant in world affairs by the middle of the 19th century. And many of the stereotypes about Africans, such as that they have no history, no established government, and various racist beliefs, came about in this time period, when Africa had become weak with little to offer the outside world, and the outside world taking little interest in Africa. And then the third major event happened in the 1870s, with Africa's economy in shambles and European industrialization in full swing. Europe, all of a sudden, had the ability to transport vast amounts of heavy materials across oceans. Before, it would not be profitable to transport heavy ores from Africa to Europe.
Well, we haven't
Technology was available yet to make it profitable.
we have some problem with the connectivity, but this is making me understand a lot. It was destroyed from the moment slavery began in the continent, and when people lost, all the, when slavery became illegal, by the time Africa was realizing this, they had nothing to show, rather nothing to even call their own already, because they already lost a lot, in this particular process. This is really crazy.
Trains, factories that could transport and produce goods at a profit.
In 1871, the King of Belgium decided
to have a colony, looked at the world map and know that Africa and so once again the strong took advantage of the weak. Soon other European nations
by Western and
Southern
Southern
European empires until Africa looked like this and like this World War I. And this had three significant results for Africa. The first is the increased poverty. European colonizers cared little for the people living in the colony. Africans were driven out of the most fertile regions to make space for European settlers. Plantations were built for Africans to work and for Europeans to own. And the taxes Africans pay.
That is what I was speaking about yesterday when it comes to like owning property in Africa, which is a problem to an African person, but an easy access to the Mzungu. So it began way back when Africans were even being chased away from their own place, and the space was given to the European. You just come and steal the land just because you have power.
But instead, on continuing their own oppression, the European colonizers were only interested in extracting wealth from their colonies by constructing roads, railroads, and ports to transport raw materials to Europe and North America. In essence, whatever wealth Africans had was systematically taken from them and handed over to European settlers. A prominent example is the Congo Free State, where they worked millions of people to their deaths. By the way, if you're curious what the free stands for in the Congo Free State, it meant free of oversight, so the rulers of the colony could exploit the locals without any interference. The second is the infrastructure, which was designed specifically to transport raw materials to their European overlords. The first president of Togo said it quite well. The effects of the policy of the colonial powers has been the economic isolation of peoples who live side by side, in some instances within a few miles of each other. Although I can call Paris from my office telephone here in Lomé, I cannot place a call to Lagos in Nigeria, only 250 miles away. Again, while it takes a short time to send an airmail letter to Paris, it takes several days for the same letter to reach Accra, a mere 132 miles away. Railroads rarely connect at international boundaries. Roads have been constructed from the coast inland, but very few join economic centers of trade. The productive central regions of Togo, Benin, and Ghana are as remote from each other as if they were on separate continents. And the third result was that by replacing all the African leaders with European leaders, that Africa was losing vital skills in terms of governing themselves, such as business managers, government leaders, or accountants, as well as practical skills such as mechanics, construction workers, or medical professionals. And that was a problem when Africans started demanding their independence after World War II, when protests, riots, and rebellions popped up across the continent, until the colonizers realized that a few million Europeans simply couldn't control over 200 million Africans if those Africans refused to cooperate. And so between 1945 and 1975, almost every African country became independent. At the time it was thought that if Africans would once again rule Africa, that wealth would follow soon. But this didn't happen. But why not? History has shown us that former colonies can become wealthy countries, such as New Zealand, Ireland, or South Korea. Yet not a single country in Africa is what we call a developed country. And the reason for this is the way in which the colonizers left Africa. Because when people don't have the skills to run a country, when communities don't connect to each other, and when prosperity is already rare, it becomes very difficult for the leaders of that country to bring prosperity to that country. But at the same time, leaders of African independence movements promised the African people prosperity after independence. So, how were African leaders going to fulfill this promise of wealth and prosperity? Well, for most African countries, the solution was an economic system called African socialism. The way this system works is that many industries will be controlled by the national government, such as mining, construction, plantations, etc. It would then use all of the nation's resources to industrialize, because at the time, manufacturing jobs paid higher salaries than farming jobs, and so decided that the best way for Africa to become rich was to replace low-paying jobs in agriculture and mining with high-paying jobs in factories. It made foreign goods more expensive by putting extra taxes on those goods, arguing that if foreign products are more expensive, then people will need to buy goods from their own country instead. The leaders were hoping that foreign investors would come to their countries because those foreign businesses wouldn't have to pay those extra taxes if they just moved some of their factories to Africa. And luckily for Africa at the time, they gained independence during a Cold War, and so they could receive foreign aid from either the West or the Soviet Union in exchange for being on their side in the Cold War. And while, of course, every African country had different economic policies, they were all kind of similar to this. But African socialism simply didn't work. First of all, the trade restrictions meant that African countries couldn't sell products to each other, meaning that it was hard to find customers to buy any products made in Africa. As a result, none of the industries could grow large enough to be able to compete with the industries of North America, Europe, or East Asia. And so nobody else wanted to buy African goods because they could get those same goods better and cheaper from other countries. Secondly, a single large government isn't able to adapt to changes in world markets as quickly as hundreds of smaller businesses, meaning that centrally planned economies will always be less efficient than economies which have a lot of different businesses competing with each other. Thirdly, Africans simply lack the skills and education required to work in manufacturing jobs in the first place, meaning that they were far less efficient than their better educated counterparts in the rest of the world. For example, out of the 200 million black Africans in the 1950s, only 8,000 received secondary education, 200 a university education, and one-third of the student-age population went to primary school. So it would take decades before enough qualified professionals would join the job market. And so African countries lacked the people needed to make their countries thrive. The fourth reason why it didn't work is not so much about African socialism itself, but about the continent of Africa. Because Africa's landscape is harsh, with some places experiencing droughts lasting years, such as the drought which lasted from 1968 to 73, causing large food shortages, while other parts have locusts and red-billed koala birds, which make agriculture nearly impossible. The fifth reason was disease. Yellow fever, smallpox, sleeping sickness, and malaria are but a few of the diseases which plagued African development. And while smallpox was being eradicated, new diseases were spreading, such as river blindness, where worms live inside your eyes and have become the second largest cause of blindness worldwide. Or take bilharzia, caused by a worm which likes to live in rivers. It infects the urinary tract or intestines, which can lead to kidney failure, infertility, and in children can cause poor growth and learning disabilities. All of these diseases are easily preventable in rich countries with access to water sanitation facilities and modern medicine. But because Africans were poor, they couldn't afford the doctors, clinics, and medicine they needed to fight those diseases. And so a combination of trade barriers, inefficient governments, a lack of education, harsh environments, and disease meant that this system was doomed to fail from the beginning. There was simply no way for any African nation to countries they inherited from their former colonizers. But this raises a new question. Why did African countries choose this system in the first place? Well, the reason is that this was a system which they inherited from their former colonizers, where the colonial government controlled nearly every aspect of the colony's economy. And if they wanted to switch to a free market system like Western Europe, East Asia, or North America, then they would need business people and entrepreneurs to set up new businesses. But the problem with this is that Africans weren't allowed to run businesses under colonialism, so the entrepreneurial attitude didn't exist. On top of that, due to colonialism, Africans were never trained in modern skills. So if you wanted to open a factory, for example, it would be impossible to find 4 or 5 employees who knew how to run the machines and factories. In today's world, we know the answer to this dilemma because we've seen countries like Singapore, Vietnam, and China in similar predicaments. But back in the 1940s through 70s, there were no such examples to follow, except for countries like Japan and the USSR, who had gained economic development through strict government control. And so Africa's leaders thought that African socialism was the best way to create wealth and prosperity for their countries. Except those two countries did so through the deaths of millions and already had an educated population when they began their economic development projects. Let's compare this to a colony which did become wealthy after independence, South Korea. They decided to focus on just a few industries, such as electronics, agriculture, and steel, and only putting trade barriers on those products. South Korea would then trade those products with things it didn't produce itself. As a result, South Korea became a world leader in things like electronics and has become one of the richest countries in the world. But this only explains why Africa didn't become wealthy right after independence. However, after a few decades, Africans would have better education and would be able to indeed set up African businesses using African labor to create African industry. Yet this didn't happen until the 21st century. So why didn't this happen earlier? Well, This has a lot to do with the corruption that emerged after independence. Shortly before independence, most African colonies became democratic, and these democracies were very unstable because they had only been around for a few years in most cases. We still see this today, where recent democracies tend to be the least stable democracies. And most African nations were not at all united. Some countries were lucky in that most people spoke the same language, while other countries had a campaign in over 100 languages. So instead, politicians realized that they could more easily win votes if they targeted specific ethnic groups. As a result, countries became more and more divided, with each election in a night only divided based on it. This made perfect sense. If you want to win votes, appeal to certain ethnic groups. But from the perspective of the country as a whole, it made the country more difficult to govern over time. And if a candidate decided to appeal to the whole country instead of specific ethnic groups, then they would lose elections. And so, through a natural process, African nations tended to become more divided after independence, all thanks to the social and political systems left behind by their former colonizers. A prominent example of where this went horribly wrong was Rwanda, with the Rwandan genocide, along with many other crimes against humanity. Once a party got into power, they would try to keep the power for themselves, fighting with opposition. Therefore, a single-party system was created in many African nations. In the years following, in hundreds of different cultures and languages, it makes sense that you wouldn't want to deal with all of them vying for power. By the 1980s, the elites had taken full control over the political system in most African countries. And so, very little changed after independence, with European elites replaced with African elites. And those new elites were concerned that they would be overthrown in a coup. So, how were they going to keep themselves in power? Well, by taking the money intended for economic development and handing them out as salaries to powerful government officials to keep them happy enough that they wouldn't start a rebellion. But whereas colonies had oversight from their European government, who would fire anyone getting too corrupt, the new leaders had no such oversight. And to show just how incompetent some of these governments are, in the Central African Republic, the government didn't even keep proper records of financial transactions. By 1964, Senegal spent 47% of the government budget on the elites, 58% in Ivory Coast, and 65% in Dahomey, now called Benin. And if outsiders wanted access to African resources, all they had to do was bribe government officials to get access. And so African governments and companies started paying money to the African elites to gain access to the resources rich nations needed to run their own economies. As a result, the elites became richer, while the poor became even poorer. So, if you're an oil company, all you have to do is bribe government officials, and you can extract all the oil that you want. The elites would get a portion of the profits, while the people would see no benefits from resources taken from their own country. This is a system which is still active in many parts of Africa to this day. And if you're a country or company who does not want to give money to corrupt politicians, then there will always be somebody else who is willing to pay. As a result, anyone who thinks morality is more important than those resources will always be outcompeted by the ones who are willing to pay the bribe. Thus, you create a system where world leaders who are willing to pay those bribes will always have an advantage over those who won't pay bribes. And over time, bribes had become the norm in Africa. The Africans were not stupid, of course, and saw what was happening. They would often protest or even start rebellions to stop their own exploitation. But in the 1960s, African countries did not have a strong enough military to keep the peace. So, who did they colonize?
This happens still today. We've seen when we're having issues in Africa, they always call the colonizers to come and try. Even when you have cases, they take these cases in the in US or maybe in different courts which are not in Africa to solve these particular matters, and that is why we're still stuck in the same place. Wow, this is really amazing, and it has given me so much details that I really didn't even know about. I was checking this video yesterday, and it gave me just some clue, and I wanted to also share with you, family. And I do hope you have learned something on this particular. And personally, I have learned because this just makes me see. I've been trying to understand, wanting to understand why is Africa, what began all this. Yes, we know it began all the way back when slavery, the matters of trade in slaves began. Then we also had resources. So when all this stopped, Africa had nothing to show off, and then we were colonized. Then we gained independence, which you don't really have, and that is why you can see we has explained perfectly well and clear. We have been divided. The mission was it has been divide and conquer. Then Zungu came, took the resources, everything, the knowledge. Like he studied Africa and even made us weaker because they first destroyed the kingdoms, they destroyed everything and left us in a weak point where they even went and gathered up together and came back and they were like, now we can really destroy these people totally. And Africa has been destroyed, to speak of it. It has been destroyed because the image itself, first, it's ruined. The people themselves have been ruined. When you speak of, he's speaking of when it comes to election, where people have different ethnic groups. That is what is really happening up to date. We see right now we have election coming August this particular year in Kenya. Right now we have different leaders who are trying to use tribe as a way of winning. They're using this particular tribe, or rather you come from this particular region, yes, you can come vote for me, or bribes and all these things. And I was saying yesterday, that is why you can see that when you speak of also the lands, the Mzungu are given, they have been having access to the land like from way back up to now. So it is no surprise if they had a free pass from way back then I'm not surprised why we have so many Wazungus in the country up to date. And if you see a Mzungu who is poor, you have to ask yourself a lot of questions because you have seen a couple who live in some different type of states and you're like, how is this in this particular state? But it is all making sense right now why we ended up where we are right now. I'll share the video on the website in case you all want to check it out or continue with it. It is a long one, and I think up to there we are well and okay because it is almost coming to the end. But this has brought a lot of lessons that I didn't know about, or none of this we have been taught in school. When it comes to the African history, we've been told how the Mzungu was he is the hero of everything. But family, we come into the end of the show today. I hope you have learned something on that. Every day we're learning something different about Africa. Yes, we have all the stereotypes, all the lies that have been instilled in this continent. But by learning every day and getting to discover the truth, that is when you can see the beauty in our own continent. So I do hope with that particular information you have learned something and that we can be able to, I hope we can gain back our power once again. I just do hope we can be able to do that and we can once go back to what we were, or the continent we once were. For now, I want to leave you with this amazing jam. And as you get to join Kate on the African Diary, this is really by the one and only Saki Dakos, one of my favorite jams playing right here on the Black Hot Fire Radio. I've been your host, Joby, and this has been the Pan African Bliss. Have an amazing, blissful the rest of the day. The blissful day, or rather blissful day. I can just say so. Asanteni sana.
If you love me, don't you let anybody touch that money. Baby, no. If you really love me, you should give back. I deserve for me. For me, exclusive for me. Baby, down. Baby, don't let me down. Baby.